Okay. Okay. We are in Duties of the Heart by Rabbi Bakr ibn Kuda, a classic of the Andalusi Judeo-Sufi tradition, talking about the inner side of religion. And we are on number 25 of 30 exercises for self-examination. And these are really exercises to help us to kind of to to see how we're doing in our service of Hashem and how we're doing in our service of God and things that maybe we could adjust. And this is a really interesting one. They're all interesting. This one's particularly interesting. Um, and you'll also see it has a couple of interesting surprises for my Muslim friends. Has interesting surprises too. So he says a person should make an accounting with his soul, right? And that's, of course, the title of this gate is Cheshbon Nefesh, accounting of the soul. To make an accounting of the soul, how they have become immersed in love for this world and place worldly desires out of love for the next world. So there are two worlds. There are two. Let's say for the sake of maybe there are many worlds, right? There are many layers of reality, but let's say for the moment there are two worlds. There's this world, right? We'll call Olam Hazeh this world, and there's Olam Haba, the world to come, what Muslims would call the Akhira, right? The world Akhira, the world to come, your afterlife, right? So it says that examine yourself and see how your priorities. Are you paying as much attention to what's going to happen afterwards to your ultimate spiritual end, or to the temporary experience of being in this world right now. And so one should endeavor to remove from his heart love for this world and replace it with love for the next world by contemplating the end result of both worlds and what his final condition will be in both abodes. So if we now, I always get a little bit nervous. I always get a little nervous at this, to be truthful with you, um, because when it says when it says when it says to remove your heart love for this world doesn't mean to remove from your heart the love for creations, right? You have to love the creations because you love the creator, right? And if you love the creator, you're going to love his creations, right? I have one of my best friends is an artist, David Sears, right? And I love his paintings, but I mostly love his paintings because I love him, and if you love the creator, you're going to love his creation. And it's not talking about that. It's about your attachment to the world. So it says, look at the world and know that it's a limited experience, right? We're here for a relatively short period of time. And as opposed to our Olam Haba, our future existence, which is eternal. Says he should try to banish love for this world from his heart and still in it a steadfast love for the next world. And so really to care about the next world. But I think part of it is also really giving the spiritual dimension of your life a concrete reality. Like we have this very kind of concrete thing like when the bills come, we have to take care of them, right? We, we're very careful to pay our bills on time. We're very careful because those things feel pressing, right? Those things feel pressing, and we have a passion for taking care of them. We really want to take care of them. And the things that we desire, we pursue the things that we desire with a great passion. When I decide I want to buy something right? I want to buy something. I'll look online for days and days and days and days, and I will look at 5,000 pages until I find exactly the thing that I want to fulfill my desire. Now, if I brought that same kind of desire to my spiritual life, right, that would be a pretty amazing thing if I were willing to invest that kind of time and energy. So it says really we should be looking, are we investing the time and energy that we invest in our physical life, in our spiritual life? So now comes a great quote. So one of the wise men has said, as water and fire cannot abide together in one vessel, so love for this world and love for the next cannot dwell together in the heart of the believer. So that's it. I love how he says one of the wise ones. So who is this Hacham? Who is this wise one he's talking about? Well, this is actually a hadith that's attributed to Jesus. Okay, so this is a Muslim saying of Jesus that he's quoting, and we shouldn't be surprised by that. He said that in the very beginning of the book. He warned everybody. He said, "I'm going to be quoting from the sages and saints of other nations," and so here he goes. Here he goes doing that. So this quote is actually hadith. It's from a couple of different collections of hadiths. You can look them up, but it's there. But it is attributed to Jesus. This is the second time, by the way, that he's quoted a hadith that's attributed to Jesus, which is kind of interesting. I don't know what to say about that, but second time. So 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 the love of this world and love so really this is pretty extreme. And by the way, this is the character that there's a book, I forget who wrote it, called The Muslim Jesus. And if you it's an interesting book, but Jesus in the Muslim tradition is much more ascetic than Jesus as understood in the Gospels. He's a little bit more of an ascetic kind of character, and he has several different. There are several different hadiths which are attributed to him, which deal with this issue of this world versus the next world, and the this world versus the next world, and the temporariness of this world, and so forth. Um, so here since it's impossible to be completely devoted to one and the other at the same time. You can't be completely in love with this world and completely immersed in it and also be completely immersed in love for the next world and for your spiritual life. And it says, and they, the wise, have also said, and by the way, this is another um, apparently, this appears many times in Arabic literature. It seems to be a proverb, um, but it's apparently it appears in a bunch of different places. It says this world and the next are like two rival wives. Mollify one and you antagonize the other. Okay, so this is a little bit of polygamous. You have two wives, and you make one happy, and the one gets unhappy. So you invest in right. You invest in your life in this world, and your life in this world, and and you take away from your life in the world to come. You invest in the life of the world to come, and it can take away from um, your life in this world. So now he says, so too. Okay, so them somehow or another. So what he's suggesting is that balancing between these two things is very difficult, right? The the analogy of the analogy of the two wives, right? The analogy of the two wives, or the analogy of fire and water, is that these things are hard to put together. Trying to balance these two things is not easy. So now he's going to talk a little bit about how one might kind of work out the balance here. So too, my brother and sister, sibling of any gender identification, both your soul and body require supervision and thought. To strengthen and promote the soul, one must train it in morals, fields of knowledge, guide it in the ways of wisdom, teach it the personal virtues, restrain it from pursuing its low desires. So there is a kind of care. People talk about self-care a lot now. I'm engaging in self-care, right? Um, but there is a care of the soul, right? And what is that? That's, pointing yourself in the right moral directions, giving yourself uh, a regimen that helps develop your spiritual life, and kind of teaching yourself how to control, that you're trying to control your wants. Um, at one point in the book, he says a beautiful thing in Duties of the Heart. Here he says, um, that the essence of spirituality is to know the difference between what you want and what you need, between what is absolutely necessary and what is extra, right? So so teaching yourself that all of that, right? All of that is necessary for spiritual growth. To strengthen and promote the body, one must supply it regularly with different kinds of food, good, tasty food, with drinks suitable to its constitution, to bathe it in lukewarm water. Guess that's okay. And pay constant attention to its welfare and needs. Right? So we know how to do this, right? The fact that we take care of our body, right, means that we kind of understand the basic principles. The basic principles are we have to pay attention to its needs. We know that its needs change, right? That sometimes we need a hotter bath, sometimes we need a colder bath, sometimes we need cold food, sometimes we need hot food, sometimes we need protein, sometimes we need starches, sometimes we need vegetables, sometimes we need fruit, right? Sometimes we need exercise, sometimes we need to rest. We know how to take care of we know to take care of a body. We know that it has changing needs, and we know that it has lots of different kinds of things that we have to do to take care of it. So too, right? If you devote your mental energy, right, to promoting your body and give it all your attention, you will have to neglect the promotion of your soul, right? If you're completely obsessed with your body, you're never going to think about your soul, right? If that's, you know, if you are, if that becomes your 24-hour job, right? If your 24-hour job is thinking about, your body, and you live between, your Pilates and I don't know, what your 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 Pilates and your yoga and your weightlifting and pole dancing or whatever it is you do, you're not going to have a lot of time for the promotion of your soul. If, on the other hand, you focus your mind on invigorating your soul and devote your attention to it, you will have to neglect many of your body's interests. So he uses an interesting, he says, "Inyane gufecha," like not so much interest as like yes, stuff related to the bodies. There are going to be desires that you're going to not be paying attention to. Right? There are going to be things, right? So if you give yourself over to a spiritual regimen, you're going to um, have there's going to have to be some give on the side of the needs of your body. But he says, but min has rezut. Okay, so interesting choice of words because I wouldn't translate it as prudence. He says prudence here. I was Zrizut usually means enthusiasm, but I guess okay. Prudence or enthusiasm. I'm thinking enthusiasm. Just dictates that you give preeminence to the soul, which is your share in eternity rather than to your body which will pass away, that you nurture your soul and care for it. Okay, so now Zrisut is a good thing and a bad thing. So Zrisut usually means like enthusiasm, and it can also be a little bit on the negative side, right? It can mean acting too quickly. So out of enthusiasm, you might think So there's a little bit of a warning here. The warning is going to come in a second. But you might think, okay, so out of enthusiasm, now that I've told you this, you're going to think, aha, okay, I'm going to go off. I'm going to be Mr. Spiritual, Miss Spiritual, Ms. Spiritual, right? I'm going to go off and I'm going to do like I'm going to meditate. I'm going to meditate 24 hours a day. I'm going to fast. I'm going to fast every single day of the week except for Shabbat, or maybe except for Friday, or I think people do fast right Mondays. Well, Mondays, I'm going to fast every Monday and Thursday. I'm going to whatever it is it's okay. So he says slow down, okay? Because by this logic, you would think, okay, my body, this is just a temporary thing. I don't have to really take care of this, right? This is just my body. But this spiritual thing is amazing. So I'm going to go, live in a cave and starve myself. He says, but do not deprive your body of the things that are vital to it. Do not overtax it or weaken it, for this will weaken both body and soul. Yeah, it doesn't work that way, right? If you weaken the body, if you don't take care of it, then your soul is gonna suffer too, right? They're inextricably linked with one another. And so if you make yourself sick and make yourself all sick and miserable, right? You're going to make yourself all sick and miserable, then your soul is going to suffer too. You're not going to be able, right? It's difficult to meditate when your stomach is growling, right? When your stomach is growling and when you have no energy, when you can't sit up, right? It's very difficult. It's very difficult to meditate. You lose your focus and so on. So you have to take care of the body. Rather, provide your body with enough sustenance to maintain it in good condition. Provide your soul with more than enough of the fields of knowledge and moral teachings. Right? So, right, no Cartesian dualism here, okay? And no Gnostic dualism either. Okay? So we're not saying the body is evil, right? And right, we should destroy the body, but instead, right? But instead, we should give the body just enough, right? Just give the body enough, make sure that it has what it needs, right? Don't deprive it. Make sure that it's strong, that your mind is working properly and everything else. Okay? But your soul, okay, you want to give it more than enough, right? You want to give it, and he says, especially Chachmot umusarim, right? Wisdom and ethical teachings, right? Wisdom and ethical teachings. Give it a lot of that. So we should have a very good diet of these things. Now it's interesting, by the way, he says this because part of the problem that he deals with in the very beginning of the book, right? The whole reason why he's writing the book, and he calls it duties of the heart, right? Obligations of the heart is because most people are concerned with the obligations of the body, right? Not just in terms of like taking care of their physical body and their like fulfilling their desires, but even in the way they do religion, right? The way they do religion is they have a list of stuff that they're supposed to do, right? And they wake up in the morning and they have this list and they go off and they check this list. They go, okay, did this, did this, did this, did this, did this. And it's all stuff that's on the outside. So he writes the book, right? He writes this book to say, okay, wait a second. There are also things you're supposed to be doing on the inside, right? Stuff to be doing on the inside. And so your spiritual diet is also going to have to reflect that. So when he says wisdom and ethical teachings, he's talking about things that deal with the internal side of religion, right? Not just books of law, right? Many people, even today, right? Many people even today, if you look at the kinds of things that they study, right? They may be studying all sorts of, the books of rules. They may be geniuses about rules, know all the rules and the rules about the rules, and understand the logic behind the rules, right? Even that. But are they working on the inner disciplines? Are they working on their ethical selves? They're working on their spiritual selves. They're working um, on those things that are inside. And so he recommends that you should have a steady diet of chachma, of wisdom and musar and ethical teachings, teachings which are meant to improve your behavior. So along these lines, the wise one, now he's talking about King Solomon, because this is a quote from the book of Ecclesiastes, said, "Do not be over righteous and do not be too wise. Why become despondent? Do not be overly wicked, neither be a fool. Why die before your time? It is best that you hold on to one and not let go of the other." What does that mean? To not be over righteous, to not be too wise. Why become despondent? Do not be overly wicked, neither be a fool. So I think partially what he's saying, this is way of summing up his argument on balance, right? That uh, that you have to be like both of these things, right? You don't want to die before your time. You don't want to be, you don't want to be like so righteous and so holy that you don't take care of yourself, but at the same time you don't want to go too far in the other direction. You want to find a balance. So that is, do not go to extremes. Do not go to extremes in adopting the ways of the righteous who withdraw from the world, lest you exceed their course and become utterly despondent. And this, I think this is I'm going to say this is the great golden age of Spain contribution to religion, I would say, um, is the 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 incorporation the incorporation of the Aristotelian golden mean um, into a spiritual framework, I think was kind of really one of the great contributions. You see this, of course, you see this in Islam. You see them in these Jewish texts from Andalusia, from the Jewish texts in Arabic, and you see it also kind of third hand, so to speak, in the Catholic scholastics who were very dependent, who were very familiar with uh, both Aristotle and with the Arabic scholars of Aristotle. So um, so he says, don't go overboard with withdrawal from the world. Okay, don't become an ascetic. So asceticism is not the path for most people. I would say that there are some people who are just naturally ascetic. There are some people who just, they were born to live in caves. They were born, you know, to do those extreme things, right? There are people who are born to those extreme things, but he says that this is not, don't go to the extreme uh, lest you become despondent, right? Lest you become, um, um, hold on. I want to look at the Hebrew for 1 second. Excuse me. Da, 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 da. Rots Lamar. Uh, okay. Okay. Lest you die before your time. Okay, that is to say, hold on. Okay, I'll deal with this later. But the problem is you're gonna become depressed. You become depressed, right? And misery is not a good place from which to serve God. Um, it's not a good place to do anything, honestly. But certainly it's not a good place to serve God from, right? There's nothing, you know, to be sad. I mean, obviously there are things in the world that we have to be sad about, right? I mean, it's not that we're not made of stone, thank God, right? And we all have hearts and we have emotions, and of course there are things that happen, that that break us, okay? But to create a lifestyle that causes us misery, right? To create a lifestyle that causes us misery, to be in constant pain, um, Uh, that's not a good idea. So it says that, don't go overboard with these with the ways of the righteous, because you might think that, okay, it's great that I should be righteous, but it's too extreme. Neither should you go to the extremes in the way of the wicked, for whom the world is preeminent, adopting their desires to a degree that's inappropriate for your religious and physical life, lest you die before your time, right? Uh, you know, on the one hand, don't become don't become too don't become overly righteous in the sense of trying to, you know, causing yourself, absolute misery by becoming an ascetic. But at the same time, don't become a party boy or a party girl, right? In which you're going to, first of all, you might end up killing yourself, right? And I think dying before your time, uh, not just physically, but even spiritually, where you just completely lose track of any kind of spirituality because you're um doing your thing. Roxanne, you have a question
Well, I just
or thought?
I have a thought. I think the last one of the last times we went through this book, we talked about we at this point we talked about scrupulosity. And
Yeah.
so to me that these two extremes are like mirror images of one another. If you are trying to do like a person that comes to mind is Simone Weil.
Mhm.
And like it seems like if you are doing that kind of extreme self deprivation, it's almost like a form of idolatry. Like it is the same thing as being a party boy. To me, I see those two things as being like variants of the same behavior, which is not really focusing on God and, trying to follow the medium path. That's
Right. Right. Well, it has the same. So it's interesting because the word. Okay, so he used before the word zrizut, right? Remember, I was like puzzling about that, which means like enthusiasm, but zrizut also compulsive, um, has this like slightly compulsive feel to it, right? And so in both cases, you're right. There's kind of this compulsiveness, right? So the compulsion in either direction, the compulsion to be hyper spiritual, if that makes a sense, to be ascetic and to be constantly depriving yourself of everything, and the compulsion to give yourself everything and to be grabbing from the world everything that you can grab. That's those you're right. Those are really what what characterize them now is their extremity, right? The fact that they're extreme is what characterizes them. That becomes their most important thing. So he
Isn't
says,
there, isn't
okay,
there a thing
yeah,
about that you're going to be called to account for the pleasures of the world that you denied yourself?
yes,
Remember that?
yeah. There's this great theme in the Talmud of the questions you're going to be asked when you come to the world to come. Right? And there are a couple of good ones. Did you do business honestly? That's one. So remember that one. But one of them is also, did you eat of all my fruits? Did you eat of all my fruits? Right? Um, Based on that, I ate a dragon fruit, which was horrible. Okay. And I ate a spiked melon or whatever that thing is called, and that is also not good. But I have tried my best to eat every possible fruit I can eat. But right, have you tried all of my? And one time when Rav Shimshon Raphael Hirsch was very old, he wanted to go to the Alps. He had never been to the Alps. He was a rabbi and he was very old. And he told his family, he says, I want to go to the Alps. And they said, like, why all of a sudden you want to go to the Alps? He says, well, I'm very old. And they said, but that's just the point. You're too old to go hiking and this and that. He says, no, I want to go. I want to see it. He says, why? He said, why? He says, because I'm afraid that when I go to the world to come, that God is going to ask me, he's going to say, Samson, did you see my Alps? Have you seen my beautiful Alps? So he went to see the Alps. So exactly, we have, an obligation also to enjoy God's world. So he says, This refers to the death of the soul, what is overcome by low desire, drowned in a sea of physical delights. Rather, take the middle path, right? Take the middle path. We're right here. We are in Aristotle, in Aristotelian land. Take the middle path and hold fast to your final home, but do not renounce your world, right? Don't just give up on the world, right? Va'al tanach olamcha. Don't give up this world, right? Don't give up on it, right? You don't get to say I don't care anything about the world, right? You were put here for a reason. If God had wanted a purely spiritual being, he already has them. They're called angels, right? He has plenty of spiritual beings, but he puts you into this world, into a body in order to act in it, right? In order to act in it. And not only that, not just to live, right? But we're here for Yeshuva Aretz. For we're here for actually doing good in the world, right? We're here for that purpose. So, pretending that you don't live in the world, that's not a thing. So, okay, for this world, you must take your provisions for the everlasting world. This world is the entryway to the place of peace, as our sages said, blessed memory. This is from Pirkei Avot, okay, in the fourth chapter. So if we keep going at the speed we're going, we'll probably get there in a year. But let's hope we move a little faster. He says, this world is like an antechamber, is like the foyer before the next world. Prepare yourself for the antechamber that you may enter the grand hall. This was the path followed by the early, this was the path by the Hasidim HaRishonim, by the early pious ones, right? This was the path. The path is you consider this world to be an entryway. Now, sometimes, we think about this, right? We think about the entryway and we think, oh, okay, so this is just like a temporary little place where we go, right? This is a temporary little place where we go, and but really the main thing, everything's happening in the ballroom, right? Everything's happening in the ballroom. That's true, right? Now, our eternity is there. Wherever I don't mean to point in a physical way, but I have arms. What can I do? But it's there. But the entryway is where we prepare. We're in the process of preparation. The preparation is very important, right? You don't show up in the ballroom, right? Without your proper hat, without your tie, right? And all that prepared in the foyer, right? All of that's prepared in this world. All the provisions that we need for the next world, right? All of them, all of them are here in this world. This world is very important, right? It's very important. It is not just a trivial experience, not a trivial experience at all. It's really the place of preparation, right? It's really the place of preparation for the next world. It's not trivial at all. And by the way, you know, if you, I saw this when when Mr. Trump went to the palace in Qatar. He walks in, and the first thing he says, "You sure have a beautiful house." Well, he was only in the entranceway, right? He was only in the entranceway, right? Because what's the point? The entranceway is made like to be dazzling, right? The entranceway is made very nice, right? God made us a beautiful world as an entranceway. Okay, this is not a trivial place, right? It's very nice, right? And we should appreciate it. It's very nice, and we should appreciate it. And He's given us all the things we need to prepare ourselves for the next for the next world. So, yeah, I'll finish it next time. I don't want to. The next part is really good. What I'm gonna do next time is gonna back. I'm gonna back up a little bit, and we're gonna go back to the verse, and then we're gonna explain that verse from Kohelet a little bit better, and finish number 25 and move on to number 26. So, because I don't want to keep you longer than necessary. So thoughts. objections, questions,
Questions
revelation?
at all on my part? I'm happy to hear everything, even though I've heard it before.
Well, it's interesting. Okay, so for some of you,
Mhm.
like this is like the second time around. Uh,
Yeah, but I mean, it's n- it's never in vain to hear about being in balance,
yeah,
because that's, I
true.
think, easy for us to ignore.
Yeah.
At least it
True.
used to be very difficult for me. So that's what I had to learn, and I'm happy I did.
Yeah, it is a big challenge, you know. I can say as somebody who I would say in my earlier I went through a few years where I was pretty ascetic, I would say. Um, uh, you know, I wish I had listened to this advice because I spent some years suffering pretty badly and also doing bad things to my body, which I want to get into it, but I have all sorts of physical problems.
I have this. Would you have listened? Because I know I would not have.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
wouldn't have listened. Yeah,
I've been
yeah,
self-harming more than enough, and I
yeah,
don't think actually I would have listened.
yeah. I would not have
Learn it
listened.
the hard way.
Yes, I would not have listened. I was
Oh,
convinced. Yes, I was convinced that I needed to sleep 2 hours a day
oh
and
my God.
study. Yeah, I slept 2 hours a day for like it's like 20 years and destroyed myself. So don't do that. Don't do that.
No,
Although you get to read a lot of books if you do that. So I got to read a lot of books,
oh, that's good. But yeah,
but
no.
but but don't do that.
I've done 4 hours for 2 years, and that was enough to get my bloody chronic fatigue.
Yes. Yeah,
So,
it's a bad move. Don't do that.
wow.
Okay.
I
So
I just had one, I'm sorry, just one
yes, go
question
ahead.
about kind of spirit, the last this week, or it's been kind of roiling around in me about how about this extrinsic reward system that I just really struggle with it. I hope I didn't already bring that up, but I really struggle. Like, is there a way to just be spiritual right here just because, like,
Well,
I don't know.
think about it this way. So I I actually don't think of it as I actually don't think of it. Thank you very much, Athena. I appreciate that. That's very kind. Um, I don't think of it as a reward. I think of it as a consequence, if that makes any
Or
sense.
what if there's no consequence either? Like, are people
But do
just,
but
is it this a people thing where just people are just bad if there's nothing guiding them?
I don't know if they're bad if there's something guiding them, but I think if we learn anything from our physical experience, it's that the things that we the things that we do have effects, right? You know, even the butterfly effect, right? We know that even something small can have big effects over time. So the idea is that if we are doing good, if we're being good, if we're developing a spiritual mindset, it means that kind of we're creating a consequence. Now, you know, as to where and how that consequence is experienced, right? You know, we try to describe that, and this is, by the way, this is I think this is an area where I'm going to say that Judaism and Islam differ a bit, and Christianity for sure differs. Um, But because we're talking about a spiritual experience, so the Jewish perspective would be because we're talking about primarily a spiritual experience, we recognize that any description that we give of it is going to be a metaphorical approximation because we are physical beings and we can only describe things in physical terms because those are the only things we know, right? So if I describe the world to come as a garden, that's because that's what I
Because
know.
we know what a garden
That's why
is.
I know what a garden
It's
is,
the
right?
language of two tongues. Yeah, I love
Right,
that.
but
Yeah.
I don't know what a soul enjoys. I don't know what a soul enjoys because I've never had the experience of being just a soul. I've always been an embodied soul, and embodied souls love gardens. Um, what did I mean to say here? Valuing the affairs in your heart doesn't make the dunya insignificant, rather it makes you pursue. Right. I think that's a very, very good point. Okay. It's a very good point. You know, if the other world is important to you, it means you're going to be investing really good stuff in this world, right? If the other world is important to you, the best way to express that is by investing the very best of you in this world. Um, and so you're not going to be, you're not going to be, it's not like you're going to be dead to this world. It means you're going to be alive to it, but you're going to be alive to it in the healthiest possible way. Okay. And for those of you who had to hear this for a second time or a third time, I apologize. Maybe it'll sink in this time. And for me, it'll sink in because I have like a head of stone. So I wish everybody a beautiful weekend, beautiful Shabbat, beautiful Jumu'ah, beautiful everything. And I hope to see you guys on Monday for Psalms. Invite your friends, invite your enemies, invite your friends' enemies, your enemies' friends, your pets' friends. Um, and see you guys soon. And if anybody has thoughts, whatever, please contact me. Let me know. Bye.
Bye bye. Thank you.
Bye bye.
Thank you.